Yeah, Aidan's referring to a presentation I did a couple of years ago where I started with, I'm Dave Northey from Microsoft. Some of you might remember me from previous launches, such as, and I listed off going back to NT4, I think was the first one I did in Ireland. If you don't know what I've been doing recently, I left the Irish subsidiary in the summer. I no longer work for Microsoft Ireland. I work for Microsoft Corporation. I'm now in the Windows Server and System Center product group in a little team called CAT, which stands for Customer Architectures and Technologies. And I kind of sit between the product group and the customer. And I sit bang in the middle and I'm trying to find out what customers like and don't like about our product. And I'm making sure that gets put into the next version of Windows. So it's great fun. If you do know me, I'm a deep techie. I love getting my hands dirty with what's coming down the line. So I've now got full access to the daily builds again. It's great fun, I love it. Completely different job. Ridiculously busy all the time, but still get to talk to customers, get out and do stuff, and get to play. So my challenge for the next 30-odd minutes or so, unless you want me to talk really quick and try and get us back on track again, is to try and explain this thing called the Cloud OS, which is this is a joke, but it's fluffy. But apart from that, it's hard to explain. There's 4 big trends in IT happening at the moment. These are the 4, and they're coming about because of just some basic facts, okay? So Moore's law on the compute side, compute doubles every 18 months, to make it funny. Things are so powerful, the number of servers, the number of processors, and there's so much you can do now at a compute level that this all becomes a reality, okay? Storage is you can't, there's more storage. I think storage doubles in the planet every year. Every year there's the same again. So now there's twice as much storage or data out there now as there was a year ago, and it's just going up at some ridiculous old number. And then the other big thing that's happening is networking. So now we've all got, well, we haven't all got yet, but 4G in our pockets, 100 megabits to our pockets, probably 100 megabits to home, terabit networks around the world. Microsoft uses a 3 terabit network between its data centers. Speed, performance, availability, Wi-Fi. Everyone expects to be online all the time with access to that data on whatever device they fancy doing. Okay, so that's what's caused these things. So mobility, apps, big data, and cloud is what's happened, and it really has transformed what we do in IT. Mobility just talks to the fact that as users or business users, but business more so, but as a human being with a device in our pocket or in our handbag or in our bag, we expect to be online all the time, having access to the data we want via applications that we like and love on any network, wherever I am, anytime, any place, anywhere. The Martini kind of concept, if you're old enough to remember what Martini was, okay? That's the mobility piece, and it really talks to us as people. So that's kind of people-centric IT. So people are now in the middle of IT. Apps just talks to the fact that we all love apps. How many apps have you got on your phone? How many apps have you got on your iPad? That kind of idea, okay? But the apps themselves need to be nice, need to be nice to consume, the usage of. There needs to be enough of them out there so you can, in a business context, do your job properly. Plus, because you've got that device on you 24 hours a day, you want to be able to use some of that time for your downtime. So you want to read a book, you want to play a game, you want to browse the web, you want to do that kind of that stuff. So apps are important. Not necessarily the number of apps. You need enough apps to do what you want to do. You probably only use a dozen or so apps. You might use 100. You certainly don't use 1 million. Someone out there is boasting they've got 1 million apps in their store, and so what? Almost, okay? As long as you've got the apps that you need and want, you're fine. I'll give you a better number than 1 million in a while, but the number isn't necessarily relevant, okay? Big data has become fascinating. Because of the amount of storage that's out there, because of the networks that are out there and the compute that's out there, people are saving data that is absolutely everything. There's nothing that you haven't captured as data, nothing. But if you're clever, you can aggregate all that data together and look at who's doing what, where, why, when, for what reasons, and you can find data or information rather within all those data platforms that you can't see up front, but you can see that people are going over there and doing this and buying that and doing some other things, and you can make changes in your business patterns to address those trends that you see if you analyze big data. So the ability to analyze multiple terabytes, petabytes of data quickly. because you've been able to do it for a while, but you can't do it quickly, instantly almost. You want to be able to get your phone out of your pocket and make decisions on petabytes of data now. That's a big thing that's happening, and there's an awful lot of work going on in the industry around that. And then cloud, obviously, is the next one. So cloud is, in my belief, a well overused term. Everyone uses it. No one really understands it as well as they could do. But just think highly virtualized, very well managed, pay as you go, or show back, charge back, elastic, never going wrong, always up, service level agreements in place, all those attributes that we all know about cloud. That's coming whether you like it or not, okay? So the IT infrastructures that we used to run, and if it went down, so what, you go mend it in a while. That's not acceptable anymore. The IT infrastructures that run those apps need to be up all the time. There's no a minute of downtime is too long. A few seconds is too long. Up all the time. And if my analysis of that data says that I need to change some business process to make more money for the business, and to do so needs another 10, 100, 1,000 servers, I haven't got time to run out and buy them. I just need to stretch my workload now. And I can do that with cloud, okay, because it gives me the capacity, the elasticity, pay as you go. I might want to run that sales thing. I can't think of a good word. That sales thing for an hour or two. Pay as you go. Spin up 1,000 servers for an hour. It costs you the same as running one server for 1,000 hours. There's some good finance going on there, okay? So if they're the big transformational trends happening in IT, our answer to that is this thing called the Cloud OS, which I'm going to try and explain in the subsequent slides, okay? So the four coloured pieces there talk to the challenges, okay? So people-centric IT talks to I'm the person that needs that nice device wherever I go, wherever I want to do. Modern business apps on a modern platform unlock insights into data, and it's transforming your data center from a data center with servers and management into a cloud, and potentially stretching out to other clouds. So on the right-hand side there's a picture of a fluffy cloud, and we've got some words in the middle that say one consistent platform, which talks a bit of what Aidan was talking to you about. So you can go up to Azure, and there's a nice portal, and you can go up to a service provider's environment, and there's the same portal, and you can go up to your own environment, and there's the same portal. They can look and work exactly the same way. So the paradigm of Azure is you log in and you want something new, you go new, and there's a list of what you could have. I want a new virtual machine from a gallery, or you're going to create your own one from a gallery, and there's the choices I can take, SQL, SharePoint, CRM, blah, 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 whatever. The exact same paradigm is true regardless of which platform you're on. So I want some workload with a service provider, connect to the service provider, new, next, finish. I want to burst out to Azure, new, next, finish. Or I want to run it indoors, new, next, finish. Exactly the same paradigm is the point. And the consistency that makes that a reality is in the bottom of the slide, and you either can or can't read the bottom there. Exact same development model, whether you develop with Microsoft tools or third-party tools. Develop it once, publish it to any one of those clouds. Build hybrid applications that have a bit of your application in each of those clouds. Do what you like, really. Our management stack, System Center, manages all of that. So you can manage inside your premise, outside. You can manage Azure. You can aggregate it all together and look at it as one thing. Really clever. SQL Server is our data platform, whether you like it or not, and it's out there all over the place. Identity is a good one. Active Directory, everyone uses Active Directory. We've put Active Directory in the cloud now, so you can now do ADFS and synchronize your domains together and have single sign-on to that whole cloud, okay, if you want to. And then virtualization. So each one of those three parts of that cloud just use Hyper-V. So Azure just uses Hyper-V, just at a bigger scale, okay? And we're actively working with service providers at the moment to help them to provision an infrastructure that makes that a reality. So a lot of service providers out there at the moment are doing this race to the bottom, and they're doing I'll say the VMware word, and I'll say the Zen word, and I'll say they do it for as cheap and as nasty as you can, but they're not being able to provide the high levels of service because they're doing it as cheap and nasty as they can. So we're helping them implement a highly available, well-managed, Microsoft-favoured cloud, which makes that a nice reality. It's very easy to join all these things together. So me, in my own environment, I can create site-to-site VPNs out to service providers in Azure and literally treat that as one infrastructure. That's where we're trying to get to. It's one infrastructure. Happens to be all over the place. You probably know this, right? So where's west from here? We're quite close, actually. We're very close to one of Microsoft's mega data centers, Grange Castle. It's one of the worst kept secrets in the world, okay? We've got, in 2009, we opened DB3, which was probably, when we announced it, it was, Microsoft had more than 10 and less than 100 data centers in the world. There is some secrecy there somewhere, okay? But we're in Ireland and I can tell you some things. We opened DB3, the first mega data center outside of the States in Grange Castle in 2009. Since then, and it was a 20-something megawatt facility. It's massive. If you've been there, who's been in our data center? A few of you have, right? You share amongst each other over coffee. It's amazing. It's massive. You get to go inside the cloud. Since we opened in 2009, we've built DB4. DB5 is nearly finished. We're planning permission in to complete DB6, and DB6 is bigger than the first three put together, and we're putting in permission for a DB7. It's just the speed at which that people are consuming all these services. We have to be ahead of that curve. We can't be sitting there, no, I can't provision your workload, I haven't got a data center with servers in. We have to have that stuff already. We're currently one of the biggest purchasers of servers on the planet, just because we're filling our data centers up all the time. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating what goes on. We've something like, give some numbers, we have over 1 billion users on the planet using stuff in our data centers. Probably 20 or something million of those are businesses doing their business in our cloud. 350, 400 million users on Outlook.com. There's big, big numbers, okay? We know how to do this. We design and we build and we manage data centers, which is weird, right? Because we're a software company, but we design, build, and manage data centers. And then we fill them. We fill them with Windows servers. Everything in there runs Windows. We run Windows servers. We know how to manage hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of physical servers running multiple millions of virtualized OSs. We get it. We know how to do this, okay? At massive scale. We get it. We sell this stuff to you with service level agreements in place. Depends what you buy. You either get 3 or 4 or 3.5 nines of uptime. It's hard. It's hard to do that, but we know how to do it, okay? And we'll give you all those learnings. So everything we've learned from doing this stuff at massive scale goes into Windows Server. So as Aidan says, the Windows Server Blue, Windows Server 2012 R2, gives you all that stuff. So how do you do software-defined compute, storage, networking? How do you manage tens, hundreds, thousands of machines as if they're one? How do you treat it as an infrastructure? Well, you do it by using policy and automation, and you do all that kind of stuff. But that's what you do. And all that knowledge we'll happily share with you. Out of interest, we'll even share with you how we build our data centers, which is another interesting fact. It's not just the cloud, though. I mentioned it's the users on devices, accessing applications, using the data, making intelligent decisions based on that. And it's the desktops too. So I mentioned the app number, okay? So our biggest competitor out there in the tablet and PC, not tablet and PC space, tablet and phone space is Apple, okay? And they proudly tout on about the fact they've got 1 million apps in their store, and aren't they fantastic? Who knows how many apps run on Windows? There's about 4 million apps that run on Windows. Most of them are business applications. It's a business conversation we're having now, right? Most applications, 4 million of the damn things. And most of the, if you write apps yourselves, if you've got in-house developers who write an app to give your company some intellectual property that makes you better than your competition, it will probably runs on Windows. Maybe, okay? There's 4 million of the damn things, okay? Now, granted, we haven't got as many in our store and blah, 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 but that's just time, okay? It's coming, whether you like it or not, but we're starting with a bigger number, 4 million, okay? Most people develop for Windows apps, obviously, using our tools, but we're quite, weirdly now, we're quite into this open source thing as well. You can write your apps in whatever language you like, and we'll happily run them on a Windows client, on a Windows server, in our cloud. We've changed. We're not the same company anymore. We are big time into open source. We're one of the biggest contributors to the Linux kernel. We've got more functionality on an iPhone or an Android phone today than we have on a Windows phone, which is a bit strange, but we're getting there. It's timing. We're a mass marketing company. We'll put our dollars where it makes sense to. But it's coming. Devices. So I do agree. We have some fantastic devices. No, they're as nice as an iPad. Debatable. I recently bought an 8-inch Dell quad-core Atom, blah, 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 a couple of £100. That's all it was. full-blown Windows, runs every one of those 4 million applications. Quite nice. It's coming. There's some lovely devices out there. There's certainly more choice on a Windows platform because you can buy from every OEM on the planet. And if you think about it, they're all trying to compete with each other and with the other guys. And they'll all try and come up with a better, sexier, slicker, smaller, lighter, more powerful, think of a nice attribute for a device. They'll all come up with one of them eventually. And I honestly think this. If you can think of a form factor that you want, you'll get it eventually. Someone else is thinking that too. And if you want it, someone else wants it. And if someone who makes devices can think of a way of selling them, they'll make them. I've always fancied, we showed off a 2 5-inch touchscreen device, and it opened like a book. And you could scroll the pages, and you could turn it around like that, and one of them became a keyboard. It was absolutely fantastic. No one's made it yet. Well, someone did make it. It ran too hot, and the battery lasted about half an hour. But that concept is coming, okay? Windows platform, I'm not going to steal too much of Damien's thunder, but enterprise-grade security. So we get security. Windows PCs, most locked down, most secure. The modern access control, who are you, what network are you on, what device are you coming at me from? That's the access I'll give you to that data. And if any of those change, I'll take it away again. Your role changes throughout the day. You're on a public Wi-Fi today. I shouldn't be giving you access to corporate information that's of high business impact, because you're coming over a network and you're potentially sitting, someone's behind you peeping over your shoulder. I don't want that to happen. So I can enforce those rules and policies if I want to, okay? Malware resistance, you all know this, right? To go back 10, 12 years, we were awful. We were the most attacked thing on the planet. We're not anymore. The most attacked pieces of software out there at the moment, and they keep changing. It's Java and Adobe, the two of them together. Between them, we're nowhere near. We're at the bottom of the list. People don't attack Windows anymore. People don't try and attack Windows applications anymore because we get it. We've learned our lessons. Even the likes of Linus Torvald, he says, Linux guys, we need to sit down and do what Microsoft did. Stop developing, get our security right. Let's learn from them. We're almost put up there as an exemplar of how you do secure IT, which is nice. It's nice to see us change, okay? So we're big time into locking things down, protecting data, not letting data slip, BitLock your devices, and off you go and do whatever you like. Empowering you to bring your own device, though, still is a valid thing. You still want to bring your own device to work, and maybe you do want to bring your iPad or your Android device in. I want to be able to let you do that as an IT person. I want some form of management over that device. I want to be able to encrypt the data that's important to me on your device, and then when that device comes out of control of the IT department, take it off, or break the chain of the PKI key so that no one can unencrypt it. We can do all that. And if you still want something better, if you still need an even crappier device that we can't manage, we'll give you a whole desktop. So we can do VDI real cleverly now, and I'll give you a desktop, or I'll give you a terminal services provisioned application. So you only get to see the front end. There's no data on your device. There's no management requirement in there. But I can do all that. We did the whole shooting match, okay? And I've even bought a prop along that, which is just it's 30 fat. It's a 32 gig SSD in a USB container, basically. That's my corporate desktop. I can plug that into any PC on the world, hit the F12 key as it's booting, boot into that, and now it's me. I log on as Dave Northey in Microsoft, and I get access to the corporate network over direct access, and I get access to the applications that IT let me use when they know I'm coming in over a Windows to Go device. So we get it. I'm going to stop talking to that client, but we're there, okay? The other two bits then are Windows Server and System Center. So Windows Server, and Aidan says this, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of new features and bells and whistles and things that we've put into the product that you couldn't just list off. Aidan's right, it would take him more than 75 minutes just to list them all off. Just by naming them, he couldn't do it. So we put things in buckets. So there's 7 buckets there. Top 3 are Fabric, so compute, storage, and networking. How do I do using software-defined, don't forget we're a software company, how do I do software-defined compute, storage, and virtual and networking? With all that's in the product. So you can build a software-defined data center by going out and buying cheap and crappy hardware, potentially if you want to, but manage it all with Windows and System Center and give yourself the same functionality as if you'd bought it expensively. I'll go into those in a little bit more detail in a while. And then the ability to manage it all, automate things, put any old application out there, do the access and information protection, and then the virtual desktop I kind of mentioned as well to get out there. System Center is the same. System Center, you buy it as one thing. We talk about single pane of glass, which is only true if that's the pane of glass you sit in, because as you know, there's 7 or 8 products within System Center. But if your job is to sit in front and monitor servers, you sit in front of MOM, and that's a single pane of glass, right? So we do single pane of glass. But again, there's lots of features and bells and whistles. We put them into buckets. So provisioning infrastructure, monitoring that infrastructure, how do you do the automation, how do you do the self-service, how do you monitor the applications and make sure that the users are getting performant, correct access to the data via their apps, and how do you manage all that into one, okay? I'm not going to talk about each of those individually, I'll put them together. If you put Windows Server and System Center together, that's how you build a cloud, okay? Your on-premise cloud will be built using Windows Server and System Center, as will the service provider. You're in the service provider space, that's the suggestion too. And then if you want to burst out and use Azure as well, you can plug it all together and build that 3-pronged cloud, the Cloud OS. They're the 4 big buckets that we'd put things in, and I have a slide for each of these, so I can just gloss over these for the minute. So it's the infrastructure. It's how do you provision it, how do you monitor it, how do you make it work, how do you do bare metal stuff. It's how do you get that software-defined data center out and put it and running and monitor it. Business continuity has become really important in 9/11, unfortunately, but everyone thought that if you had a DR site next door, that was fine. Not true. So DR has become a massive must. If you look at any CTO or CIO's requirement lists, DR or business continuity is really high up there. It's like number 2 or 3, I think. We've thrown that in the product. I'm going to say for free. It's not free. You bought the Windows licenses, but it's free. Okay. Business continuity. How do you get those services out there? How do you design them? How do you put them out there? That's all in the product as well. And then how do you manage the apps? So one at a time, okay? Enterprise data center. Software-defined enterprise data center. These slides build like this. The bottom bit is what you want, and I click the button is how we deliver it. Okay? That's kind of quite easy. So using industry standard hardware, you go buy a bunch of disks, just a bunch of disks, JBOD enclosures, you buy some crappy old switches from whoever you want to buy crappy switches from, and whatever server platform you go buy. We can make that highly available, reliable, as performant as the competition, which is interesting, okay? We do bare metal deployment of that. I can sit at my single pane of glass and know that someone's just put a few servers in a rack and provision them as Hyper-V hosts, provision them as storage servers, create clusters, do whatever I like. I can build the infrastructure from my desktop. I can build virtual networks from my desktop. I can do everything from this single pane of glass we talk about, but doing less expensive stuff. So the price point's gone down. We'll give you the exact same features, if not better, for cheaper. That's the kind of the nice thing about that, all that. Big time into multi-tenancy. Some people call this the service provider release, okay? My comment is I would think we're all service providers. Even if you only look after an IT infrastructure for a couple hundred people, you're a service provider. You're providing a service to your users. And you should be trying to create something that's highly available, never down, with some sort of service level in place, even if it's not financially backed. You know, there's this concept of charge back, I'll charge you for what you use, but there's also this concept of show back. I'll show you how much you're using and how much it would cost if you went somewhere else to go buy it, and therefore what value I'm adding to the business. I've done all this great work for you guys, and you're getting it, and it's always up and never goes wrong. And yes, you can go somewhere else and pay for it, but look how much you pay for me. You pay me a pittance. That's the kind of concept that's in there, okay? Reducing the complexity of it is just kind of, I've kind of covered some of that, but this idea of if you can automate it, you create a run book, you create a workflow, and next time you have to do that same task, you just run that run book. It's repetitive, it's everything comes out the same, it's kind of nice, okay? And the ability to move those machines around between clouds is obviously a must. We'd obviously like everyone to be running on Azure, so we've made it really easy to get people up onto Azure. Same for moving between other clouds as well. It's nice. And then some insight into all that as well, which is kind of nice. So capacity monitoring, so the ability to do quality of service, the ability to do quality of service on storage, on network, on compute, the ability to be able to do that show back or charge back stuff. Some best practices coming from outside. So we've rather than start putting best practice into the product, you can now use tools like a System Center Advisor and have it look at your infrastructure from the outside and report on how well or badly you're doing it doing your job, I guess. And the ability to capacity plan. So if you report on, you're getting close, you're getting up to 75, 80% of your workloads. I predict that in 2-3 months' time, you'll be flat out. And so go and buy some more servers. Go and bung some more compute or storage into your racks, that kind of idea. Mentioned business continuity. We actually launched this in Windows Server 2012, a feature called Hyper-V Replica. It's the ability to take a running virtual machine in your primary site and take an asynchronous copy of it and put it somewhere else. So this guy's running all the time, but you've got another copy over there, asynchronously. We used to be every 5 minutes. Now we do it at 5-minute intervals, 15-minute intervals, or 30-second intervals. So for the cost of your Windows license, we'll give you a sub 1 minute, so 30-second, copy of your data. In the event of an absolute catastrophic failure of this infrastructure, not to worry, I'm only 30 seconds out of date over here. I just spin these guys up. 30 seconds is not bad. So if you know your 4 nines and 5 nines and all this palaver, I'll give myself a challenge. I don't know the answer. I think 4 nines is 53 minutes of downtime a year, or is that 5 nines? It's about that. It's about an hour. So being able to bring it back, having only lost 30 seconds, and be able to bring all that up again as quickly as you notice it's gone wrong, it's pretty awesome, right? We've also included a third level. So what if I've got 2 data centers? I've got my primary data center and my secondary data center, and one fails. That's no problem. I can bring it up there. But what happens if shit really happens? I want a third one. I want somewhere else. Put it up with a service provider, perhaps. Or maybe I am the service provider and I'm offering DR as a service, and I've only got 1 data center. Maybe I ought to have a secondary data center in case my data center keels over. So I have the ability to do primary, secondary, tertiary, sub 1 minute, 30-second asynchronous copies of all this stuff, and be able to bring it all back up again. So I've spoken to all that already, so I can do it. The first point I didn't even mention. The ability to keep that single server up and running is nice too. Okay, so we put lots of resiliency into a single server. So the ability to do things like online resizings of disks, straight up and down. The ability to do that quality of service on storage, on network, and on compute. And there's and to mention that one, backup to Azure. So in the box, your Windows backup to the cloud. If you're okay to put your business data encrypted with a key that only you know into an American-owned provided cloud, then off you go. No one can crack it. You've got a key, and it's just in the box. Backup to Azure, and now you've got an off-site backup that you can restore from. Interestingly, you can restore those to VMs in Azure if you want to. There's another method of DR, okay? Do backups up to the cloud, and if shit happens, restore your backups to some VMs that you span up in Azure. Nice. I mentioned Hyper-V Replica. Storage agnostic is valid, okay? So let's say I've got a really expensive SAN in production, because that's where I want my real performance stuff. DR doesn't need expensive storage and quick stuff. Not necessarily. So maybe you go and buy just a bunch of disks in your secondary. And maybe a tertiary is even worse. Maybe it's just got a couple of, I want to say USB drives stuck in the back of the server, but we don't support them. But you get that you could do that. You could have different price points for different options within. Okay. Yeah, and the last point just talks about a feature in Windows Azure called Hyper-V Recovery Manager. So if I do have a primary and a secondary site, and one of them dies, where would you run the automation for bringing the other side up? Would you have the automation to bring the secondary side up on the primary site? No, because if it's died, you can't run the automation to bring it up. So you just need it somewhere else is the point. So we'll let you. You can run that up in Azure. There's no data involved at all. Your data is going between your data centers over your networks. All we hold in Azure, in your view of Azure, is a view of what's in primary and a view of what's in secondary, and a process to bring them up. There's an order in which you want to bring them up. If it did happen, and you had to fail over your whole company to another data center, you probably want to bring things up like your domain controllers first, followed by your databases, followed by the applications that use the databases, followed by your line of business stuff because you're making money or losing money, then all the other stuff. So there's an order in which you'd bring stuff up. All that gets written into a run book, and Azure's monitoring that everything's happening, and if shit happens, apologies for keep saying shit happens, but it does, this guy, you can kick off the run book and bring the other half up. It's sweet. So we've got a nice solution. Around SLAs, and we can start putting SLAs around all this stuff as well, okay? So from my single sheet of whatever, my single pane of glass, I can provision all this stuff. So I can push out my servers, my compute clusters, my storage, my networks. I can do it all. Managing physical hardware, managing the SANs if you want to buy SANs, managing the switches if you want to buy switches, doing it all, okay, in a clean, automated, repeatable, not to go wrong fashion. That's the point behind all this, and that's kind of our learnings of what we've done in our cloud, okay? Multi-tenant, so if you're in the service industry, then multi-tenant makes obvious sense. Even if you're a business, multi-tenants makes sense. You don't want business units necessarily seeing what other people are doing or interfering with what other people are doing. You don't want one business unit to use so much compute that this other one can't do its job. You want separation, okay? So multi-tenancy is a must regardless, I think, of whatever you're doing. Standardized VM gallery is this concept of, yeah, I can go to a cloud, go to Amazon or even Azure and go, I want a new virtual machine running Windows, and I get a Windows machine. Then I have to go install all my applications and stuff on it and configure it the way I want and get it to be corporate standard and then connect it back and I'm done. We have this ability with a VM role, whether it be in Azure or with a service provider or on-premise, to predefine those virtual machines. So I can now put them up in a gallery of, here's the virtual machines that my company's allowed to use, put them in a gallery, and now IT or business users of your infrastructure can now go to a portal. I want a new virtual machine running, I'll have a SharePoint one, or I'll have a CRM one, or I'll have a SQL box, or I'll have a domain controller, or whatever they want. Predefined, pre-configured to a best practice that either we or you define, which is kind of nice, okay? And a very nice way of managing that. I'm the service owner. You guys can be business owners can be tenants, and then within each tenant, I can determine who can and cannot stop, provision workloads. Okay, it's kind of nice. And then at a bigger level, we have this concept of doing service templates. So a VM role is a single VM with some stuff in it, but most people now build applications. So pick an awful application, SharePoint. I didn't mean awful in that way. It's awful, it's complicated. A highly available SharePoint site is going to have clustered SQL at the back end. It's going to have a couple of index servers, a couple of search servers, 3 or 4 servers at the front end for load balancing the work coming in. How do you configure one of them? Do I go in and build each server individually and join them all together and get the networking right? Or do I press one button and say I want a SharePoint farm? And maybe it asks me how many users, a 10,000 user SharePoint farm. Next. And I wait a few minutes and lo and behold, there's my 10,000 user SharePoint farm. That's what you want, okay? We will do that too. Kind of nice. Can't do that in Azure yet, but you can do it on premise. So there's, we learn from each other. Some people are quicker or more or ahead from anyone else. Yeah, that's good enough for that one. And lastly, on this vein is application management. Okay, I kind of have mentioned a lot of this. So I don't care what you develop in, and I don't care where you run it. That's kind of what we've said. So honestly, write what you like, and run it. Decide when you decide. Do I want to run it in Azure? Do I want to run it with a service provider? Do I want to run it on premise? Do I want a bit here and a bit there and a bit somewhere else? Maybe I have to have my data on premise because I'm not allowed to share my data with someone else. Maybe I have my compute out with a service provider. And maybe I burst out to Azure when I need to, when the money's coming in and I could sell more if I had more websites up and running. That kind of concept is where it goes, okay? So it's complete hybrid. Don't care about language, don't care where you run stuff is the important piece there. You do need this. You need this insight into stuff. You need to know what's going wrong. You need to be able to look inside these applications and see where the faults are. So obviously we monitor applications, okay? So your application's running, great, okay? What do you do things with like a user rings you up and says this application is going a bit slow? Well, you log in and do it yourself and it's fine. You talk about it's going slow, there's nothing wrong with that, it works perfectly. That would be a quite normal trouble ticket, wouldn't it? It would. We have the ability to not only do sort of synthetic transactions in from outside to see what an end user's experience of all this is. We are monitoring from the tin, literally, all the way up to the user's interaction with an application. But I can now go right into the code itself and say, you know what, Mr. Developer who developed this application, this line of code in your Java, whatever you did, or your .NET app, or this SQL Server, gone completely blank. What are those jokes you bung in SQL Server? Thank you. Stored procedure. Oh, that was well done. I can go right down to that level. That's the problem. And then fob it over, or throw it back over the fence to the guy that wrote it and say, look, users are saying your application's slow, that's why. Go fix it. With that level of granularity. It's not just the server's up or the database is mounted. It's the whole thing from top to bottom. ability to aggregate the whole solution. There's my web servers, there's my middle tier, there's my databases, there's the switches it's running on, there's the hardware it runs on, there's the gateway it goes out to, there's the DNS server. Everything else, that's the solution. I can look at that one app as one thing. Big green tickets going fine. And if anything goes wrong, right down to anything, level of code, line of code, if you want to. Okay? Best practice analyzers, outside-in monitoring, I mentioned all that. And as a developer, I can hook into all that stuff as I'm developing. I hook into that stuff. So in the Visual Studio, I say I'm going to monitor. I'm in test and dev at the moment. I want to know. I want alerts popping up into my single pane of glass. I'm a developer. I want to know what's going on, and that happens. I can make that happen too. Okay. So I'm talking too much and too long, and I'm going to get nicked off in a minute. That's my summary slide. But try and listen to this one. Okay. What's the purpose of an operating system? What does an operating system do? I'll answer it myself, but think. Okay. What does an operating system do? Well, traditionally, it sits on a piece of tin, and it manages the resources of the hardware. So it's managing the disk and the CPU and the memory and all the rest of it, okay, such that you can run an application on top of it in a performant, user-friendly, blah, 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 okay? That's what an OS is. So what's a cloud OS? It's an operating system that runs on cloud, at cloud level. Across the whole shooting match. It's managing servers, it's managing data centers, it's managing multiple data centers, it's managing the networks, it's managing the storage, it's managing all of the stuff that's potentially in multiple clouds across all of those three platforms, using all that development management, data identity, and virtualization consistency between those clouds, such that you can run applications. We're in IT, most of us in IT. Why do we live? Why do we exist? What's our job? It's so those applications run. We wouldn't have a job if there wasn't a requirement for an application. I think I've said that correctly. We exist so that our users, on whatever device they want, from wherever network, wherever they are, one at a time, the Martini advert, can run that app. That's why we exist. And the Cloud OS enables that. Okay? So it talks to all of the attributes of, from the tin to the networks, to the storage, to the servers, to the data centers, to the users, to the devices, to the applications. It talks to the whole thing. But an OS literally just does, it manages physical resources and kind of provides resources for apps, and that's all a Cloud OS does. So with that, I'm going to shut up. I'm around for the coffee break if anyone wants to ask me any weird and wonderful questions. I know we're running way over already. I'm going to hand over to Mark Fox from Kamara, who's going to talk to you about what they do. I'm a fan of Aiden, in fact, first. Yeah, don't stand in front of that, you lose.
Thanks, Dave.
We haven't got time for questions. Oh, got one little thing asked me to do this. You all got given a little white box when you came in. In the white box is quite a nice looking memory stick, actually. As it goes, it's 8 gig memory sticks, but that's not too bad. On it is all of the learning material you want for this, links to all the evals to download this stuff. Don't throw it away. Don't just format it. Have a look what's on it first. There's some useful stuff on this. I'm keeping mine. That's okay, because I hoard these things. Is that right? Useful? Good explanation? I'll shut up.
If you want evals, go look at them. Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
So I'm just going to take a second. First off, I'm going to tell you the heating is being adjusted. It was freezing in here yesterday when we were in here, and now it's a little too steamy for comfort. Plus, I think the projectors throw up quite a bit of heat too. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask Mark Fox to come up from Kamara. If you have not heard of Kamara, please pay attention. This is a really worthy cause. The registration fee that you paid to attend this event has gone towards this check, which is €3,207.75. So this is going to a really good cause where kids are going to be getting access to IT, probably without your contributions, may not have had that opportunity. So Mark, I'm going to ask you to come up and this is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Thank
guys.
you.
Well, thank you very much. That's really appreciate that. So, guys, thank you for coming today. We're delighted to be here. Delighted to be the charity of choice for this event. I would like to call out MicroWarehouse and Microsoft and the sponsors for kindly deciding to donate the registration fees for the benefit of Kamara and for the benefit of the kids that I'll show you pictures of going through this presentation. Just to start out, for any of you guys who don't understand what Kamara does, I suppose the why for Kamara is that education is, we believe, the most powerful weapon which can be used or which should be used to change the world. And that's a quote from Nelson Mandela. So from that perspective, what Kamara is doing to try to change the world is we're using older technology to improve education and livelihood skills in disadvantaged communities around the world. We are in East Africa, we're in Tanzania, we're in Kenya, we're in Ethiopia, we're in Zambia. We're also in the Caribbean, we're in Haiti, and we're in Jamaica. And we also provide education solutions to disadvantaged communities in Irish schools as well. We've been doing this since 2005. To date, what we've delivered is, the key tangible is 600,000 digitally literate children. And these are children that would not have become digitally literate without access to these reused computers with the educational material on them. A key part of what we do is we provide teacher training. We provide a series of free educational numeracy and literacy software on the computers. We also provide training to the teachers to enable them to teach the children. So that's really key to what we do, because there's no point in sending out computers to schools if they just sit in e-learning centres unused. In total, at this point, we're actually over 45,000 computers that are in schools. And that's basically resulted in the setup of e-learning centres, 2,500 in total. So what is the impact of this computer that you probably no longer require? Well, one of them provides digital literacy to 21 students. So we believe that digital literacy is a key 21st century educational skill. You have to have it basically to basically get on in life and to free yourself from your impoverished circumstances. So what I would actually ask people to do is to check us out, check out our website. So it's kamara.org, and there's a Give Computer section there. And I'd ask anyone who's interested or who may have computers that their company is disposing of to contact me at the break or during lunch. We will be running an XP phase-out campaign. I believe there's around 40% of Microsoft customers still are running XP, so we can reuse that equipment very well. I have a stand outside. We have a stand, and again, just to reinforce the message that you could scrap your computers, and that's currently the main kind of practice of organizations. But what they don't realize is that if it's reused, it can educate and will educate 21 children. So why would you basically scrap something through the recycling process, and when it could be reused? So the concerns are for organizations like yourself that, you're giving it to a charity. What sort of guarantee do you have that the hard drives will be wiped? So we provide a secure data destruction. It's kind of key for the IT community that we do that. So what we use is an application called DBAN, and we basically wipe every computer or hard drive 7 times. And the US Department of Defense standard requires only 3 times. So what we actually do then is after the wipe has finished, we will provide you with a certificate which outlines the make, the model, and the serial number of each of the computers that we've wiped the hard drives of. We'll also provide the full recycle reuse certification as well. approximately 50 to 60% of the computers that we receive, we can reuse. We also provide to any donor here full traceability on where their reused computer has gone to. We can tell you the school locations. So, you know, that's a sort of a very important sort of part of what we do, is to provide sort of transparent sort of links as to what happens to the equipment at each stage. We also, at the end of life of the computers in Africa, go to the schools and collect the computers and ensure that the equipment is recycled to first world standards. So these are some of the well-known brands that we've worked with who either fund us or who give us computers. We've been going since 2005. In the technology space, EMC Squared are a good customer of ours as our sales force. We work with Dell, who would be a very big partner of ours as well. We're working with them on their asset recovery and recycling scheme right throughout Europe. So it's a very big and important relationship for us. You can see there's other brands there, PwC and Zurich and Facebook that we work with. We're a Microsoft authorized refurbisher as well. Most of the kit that goes into Irish schools is Windows 7 based equipment. Look, I'll close by saying basically that we believe that reuse of technology bridges the digital divide. The proof is, you know, the 600,000 children that have been made digitally literate. We can continue to keep doing this work if we can get the old technology from your companies that can be reused. You know, obviously it's essential that new technology is adopted to ensure that companies are more productive and more efficient, and you know, those cloud-based applications with the operating systems we talked about are absolutely fundamental to, you know, the growth of the Irish economy. But I would say that, you know, old technology has a big social impact and does provide digital literacy to disadvantaged communities. So I'd urge you to consider us when you're disposing of equipment, and where we are basically is camara.org /give computers. And finally, just once more, I'd like to call out a big thanks to MicroWarehouse and Microsoft and the sponsors for inviting us here today to give us a platform to just get our message out. I hope I haven't been too long, and thank you again for the donation. Thank you.